Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Raise Your Hand Texas Candidate Forum for Texas House District 139. I want to thank all of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here for this important discussion. This concerns public education, which is our future. By attending today's candidate forum, you have demonstrated your desire to better understand our candidates' stances on important public education policy. And as a former public school educator, that really does fill my heart. Thank you for taking the time, and thank our candidates for joining us. My name is Natalia Gomez-Rambach, and I am the Senior Regional Advocacy Director for West and Central Houston. I'm also joined by my Raise Your Hand Texas colleagues, Amelia Folks. She was the expert on the camera. She is our Director of Public Relations. We also have Dr. Michelle Smith. She'll give a wave. She is the Executive Director for our organization. And of course, last but certainly not least, my partner in advocacy, Jackson Griffon, who serves as the Regional Advocacy Director for East Houston Gulf Coast Region. Thank you to my esteemed teammates for assisting in tonight's forum. Amelia and Michelle are part of our team in Austin, and we work in concert with our entire Austin team and 9 other regional advocacy directors that canvass the state. It is a great honor and privilege to serve alongside these extraordinary warriors for Texas public education. I am extremely thankful that they are able to join us tonight. If it weren't for my public school education, I wouldn't stand in front of you today. Public education is a game changer and a life changer, and it changed the trajectory of my life. I want you all just to take a moment and think about yourself as a student. When you were a student, how it felt, the things that were important to you, and how important school was to you. The urgency and importance of public education is something that is very important to me, and I know it's important to you because you've taken time to join us today. The future of our great state, our economy, communities, citizenry, all depend on how well we prepare our students today for tomorrow. All students deserve a level playing field and equal access to quality public education. We believe our public schools represent our greatest hope for educating and preparing all 5.5 million Texas students in our public schools for the future. Raise Your Hand Texas is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that was founded over 16 years ago in Austin to advance public education. We are hosting a series of over 20 nonpartisan public education forums. I would like to take a moment to thank all of our public educators for their service and for continuing to stand up every day for the 5.5 million students in our classrooms. We have 1,000 districts educated by over 360,000 teachers and an additional over 300,000 staff statewide. Our public schools are the cornerstones of our community and of our state. Raise Your Hand Texas believes every legislative session should be a public education session. For our event today, there will be a series of questions related to some of the most pressing issues. This includes learning loss due to the COVID pandemic and many, many other issues, as you well know. The future of Texas, again, is in our public schools. That's not just a tagline, and it's not just on stickers. It's something that we truly believe and drives our mission and our work. At Raise Your Hand Texas, we believe that everyone deserves a free and appropriate public education. My hope for House District 139 is that all voices, including educators, students, administrators, parents, business owners, taxpayers, and municipal leaders can work together through informed advocacy efforts to fight for the needs and desires of the independent school districts within our communities. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Raise Your Hand Texas, I let you know that we were a nonprofit, and we have had these for every session since we started with our regional advocacy directors. And so this is something that's very important. It happens across the state. If you go to our website, we will have this video posted within 72 hours for you to be able to go back and share it with people that you know want to be informed. So before I introduce our esteemed moderator for this evening, I want to thank all of you I want to thank all of you for taking time to learn more about the hardworking candidates and their stances on public education. As you know, an engaged and active constituency is very important to ensure for the best for public schools during a legislative session. It's imperative that we open up the channels of communication and work with our elected officials for pragmatic and effective outcomes concerning public education. And now, if you are an elected official in our audience, we want to make sure that we recognize you. If you would stand or wave. Those three wonderful ladies are three board members with Spring ISD. They're greatly appreciated. I would now like to introduce the moderator for tonight's forum, Kelly P. Hodges. She serves as the secretary for the Board of Trustees in position 2. She is the regional director for the Gulf Coast Coast Guard Foundation. It's a mouthful, but that's awesome. I have a nephew in the Coast Guard, so I appreciate the service that you provide as well. Ms. Hodges was elected to the Board of Trustees in November of 2019. She has lived in the Spring ISD community since 2000 as an active member of the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated and the Omicron, I didn't want to butcher it, Tau Omega chapter, which serves Spring, Texas. She has been actively engaged in the community through programs and services spearheaded by that chapter since 2004. She is an alumna of Grambling State University, where she received her Bachelor of Arts and Master of Science degrees. She brings 18 years of operations management experience in communications, marketing, public health, advocacy, and nonprofit management and fund development. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Ms. Kelly.
18 years. Wow. I think it's more like 20 plus now, but we're going to keep 18 for a while. But with these hot flashes, y'all have to forgive me. They didn't warn me about the hot flashes. They just come out of nowhere. Like I was fine 10 minutes ago. Okay. All right, let's see, where are we? So good evening, and as you all, of course, I'm very delighted to be here because I serve on the school board for Spring ISD, and public education is, is the backbone of our community, and not to be cliché-ish, but we do know that the children are our future, and the future is in jeopardy. I'm sorry. Yes, average height people like me. Thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. And so with that, I'm delighted to moderate this evening's forum. Before we begin, we're going to go over a few logistics. We've already spoken with the candidates, but just wanted to let you all know the event is being recorded. We ask that you do not do any recording. And what we'll do is after the event, the link will be available on the Raise Your Hand Texas website in about 72 couple of days, as she mentioned. So any unauthorized videos are not allowed, and candidates may not use video footage for campaign purposes. Okay? All right. Also, the questions have been prepared in advance by Raise Your Hand Texas, and so all of the candidates have the questions ahead of time, right? Yes. Okay, so they're prepared for those questions. The candidates have also been assigned a random speaking order. So each candidate will give an opening remark for up to 1 minute in the assigned order, and they will give closing remarks for up to 1 minute in the reverse order. So the speaking order for candidates' answers to questions will vary, and each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer. And we have a timekeeper. Who's our timekeeper? All right, Jackson, thank you. We ask that you hold your applause until all candidates have responded to the question posed to them. And I would also like to note that all of the candidates running for House District 139 were invited to attend this evening's event. But as you can see, we have empty spaces. Just know that they were all invited to this event. Candidates, please respond directly to questions and talk about your own positions, not those of other candidates. Please do not interrupt other candidates, attempt to engage them, or refer to them at all. And if I feel a candidate is not respecting these rules, I will kindly interrupt you and redirect the conversation. Okay? I don't want to have to do that. But I don't think I am. I've talked to these ladies and we're ready to go. There we go. So now I would like to introduce the candidates in this evening's forum running for state representative of House District 139 of the Texas Legislature. Candidates, please acknowledge when you hear your name so the audience will see you. The candidates for Texas House District 139 in alphabetical order by first name are Angeanette Thibodeaux, Charlene Ward Johnson, and Ms. Jenkins. Thank you, ladies. Each candidate will now have up to 1 minute for opening remarks. We ask each of you to tell us about yourself and about your family's experience with Texas public schools. And we'll start with Ms. Angeanette Thibodeaux.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me successfully?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, good evening, everyone. I am Angeanette Thibodeaux, your next Texas State Representative for District 139. I come to you by way of Acres Home, so when you say Thibodeaux from the Fofo, now you know. Right here. So what I want to do is make sure you understand my platform, and one of the items on my platform is having an engagement with our youth. I do have a child in this public school system, so I live it, I breathe it. That's one of the many reasons why I ran and why I decided to do this, because there's so many misappropriation of funds in our system. My son is a victim and a survivor of the way public school is being ran right now, not having enough teachers' aides. The student-to-teacher ratio is a concern, not having guidance counselors, and public safety. So I took it upon myself to be involved into the school process myself to operate, and I'm running out of time. Angeanette Thibodeaux, District 139.
Yes, you are next. Next is Ms. Charlene Ward Johnson.
Hello, I am Charlene Ward Johnson, and I've been an advocate for education for many, many years, about 25 years. I'm currently on the board of Houston Community College, where I advocate for funding for both academics and workforce training. I wanted to make sure kids had an option if they wanted to go to a 2-year, get an associate's, and go on to 4-year, or learn a job skill, because sometimes everybody may not want to go to college, but they should learn a skill. So, kids need to have that option. I've been a business owner where we had a restaurant where we would let kids intern there. I've ran an after-school program in the 5th Ward area, and I've also had daycares. But I've been very involved in the education system because I've been volunteering in high schools and elementaries. I understand the disparity of each schools. I've been on the shared decision-making at Forest Elementary School, so I've always been an involved parent. My kids have graduated, and one has graduated from college, but she's still at home.
That was good. That was good.
And last but certainly not least, Ms. Jenkins.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mo Jenkins, and I'm running to be state representative for House District 139. And I want to spend a lot of my time talking about what public education means to me. Public education saved my life. When I was homeless at the age of 15 until I was 18, it was my public school teachers that gave me food. It was my public school teachers that allowed me to come and take a shower. It was my public school teachers that told me to do the collegiate program so that I could get my associate's associate's degree so that I could go to college and be able to finish quicker with less student loan debt. Now, they didn't tell me the truth about that part because I still got a lot of student loan debt. But public education saved my life, and so I want to make sure that we have a fully funded, fully fleshed out public education system so that every student has that safety net. As we keep seeing things are taken away, public education is always going to be there, so I want to make sure that our students always have a place to turn, that they know is safe, that they know they can go to. Thank you. And I gave back 6 seconds.
Good job, thank you. The 88th regular legislative session and the additional 4 special sessions elevated numerous education policy issues at our Texas Capitol. Teacher pay, inflationary pressures, the $1.9 billion special education funding shortfall, rethinking our assessment and accountability systems, and of course, the school choice or voucher debate. Unfortunately, all of these major policy issues ended up stalling and are on hold until either a 5th called special session sometime this year or the next regular session in January of 2025. Texas entered the 2023 legislative sessions with historic budget surpluses. Over $33 billion was available coming into the regular session. And after funding $18+ billion for property tax relief, the state still has $18 billion remaining after updated budget estimates. In addition, the legislature set aside $4 billion in the state budget for school funding and $500 million for vouchers that will remain untouched until legislation is passed by both chambers. We will now begin the Q&A part of the forum with 9 questions prepared by Raise Your Hand Texas. The candidates have been notified of these questions ahead of time, as I mentioned, and they will each have up to 2 minutes to respond. Please note that our timekeeper, who's doing a great job, he has the digital display and they'll see the timing. Thank you so much, Jackson, you're doing a great job. We will start with 3 general questions concerning public education policy from the previous legislative session. And we'll start with Ms. Angie Thibodeaux. The first question, what do you think were the biggest public education accomplishments of the 88th regular session and special sessions?
Okay, first of all, I think one of the biggest accomplishments was House Bill 1605. And that was a bill where we, and my son benefited from this, where we provided more instructional materials to the schools. That was about $600 million. And those instructional materials actually helped both the teacher and the child. You cannot imagine, I've spent 25 years doing advocacy, literally advocacy. Do you know how it feels when the teacher is coming to the parents saying, I need paper, I need this, I need that? And there are small minimum things. And having instructional aids was an accomplishment for that session. Another one that comes to mind is House Bill 8, where we have, instead of providing funding and awarding funding, allotting funding, I should say, to community colleges based on enrollment, now they're awarding it based on performance, where we pay for performance, looking at the curriculum, having completed the coursework. And once you complete the coursework, guess what? Now you're ready for workforce. We're talking about workforce readiness. That's what we should be awarding. Not just getting people to enroll, but seeing them through, crossing that finish line. I'm just like Secretariat. I want to cross that finish line and then be prepared to go out into the workforce. We have to stop this school to prison pipeline and allowing our kids to fail with no recourse, providing a good solid curriculum. And this House bill did that. And actually awarding the schools, allotting them money for that curriculum was key. So if I had to pick the top 2, those were it. And I yield some time.
All right, thank you. Next, Ms. Charlene Ward Johnson. Would you like me to repeat the question?
No.
Okay.
One of the biggest accomplishments that I feel was the voucher plan, the voucher bill being voted down. Democrats and Republicans came together because it's majority of Republican House, but they did come together to vote that down. They met for several times. Governor kept calling special sessions, and each time it was voted down because the school voucher is going to be detrimental to public education. So that was one of the major accomplishments, that they were able to come together to deny or vote down that. And also another accomplishment was the COLA, the cost of living raise for teachers. That was a great accomplishment. All of that surplus that we have, they needed that. The teachers needed that money so they can continue to work. That's why we're losing a lot of them. But the cost of living raise for the teachers, the retired teachers, and the voucher bill being voted down.
Thank you. Moji?
So I'll concur. The defeat of vouchers was the biggest accomplishment. And I'm proud to be the staffer who wrote the budget amendment that killed the voucher scam, that 2-week time period working with our partners to make sure that we got the language just right. And I'm proud to also be the staffer that led the effort to prepare our members for that debate. That was about a month and a half of work getting them ready for that debate, and I'm super proud of that. I want to say the other flip side of that, not just the defeat, but the coalition, right? And so if you take a look at that coalition, it was urban, it was rural, right? Yeah. It was across racial lines, and that's not all the time heard of in the House. And so that was one of the biggest accomplishments that I'm gonna have to say that I was proud to be a part of, that I was proud that came out of this session, as well as the COLA, working with Dr. Allen to make sure that we got that pushed through, to make sure that our retired teachers got that. Because like I said, public education saved my life. One of my favorite teachers is retired. And I was just talking to a lady earlier about her apron looking just like my teachers from pre-K. So, but that's the biggest accomplishments that I have to say, because that took a lot of work and a lot of hard work. And it wasn't just about taking that vote. For some of the members, it took them convincing to keep them to stay on with us. So I want to applaud the members for their vote, but I also want to take a moment to applaud the staffers behind the scenes who worked diligently for over almost 2 months to get that together and to make sure that we had that.
Thank you. Okay, next question, Municipal Charlene Ward Johnson. What public education issues do you believe still need major attention?
Funding for schools. We still need the funding for the public schools, especially in lower economic neighborhoods, because they need more resources. They need more wraparound services. The teachers have to deal with more behavioral issues at their school. So it's more funding for the schools to across the board, giving everybody the same amount does not work for the inner cities, the lower tax brackets. Because even with the taxes being reduced, that means there was less even coming into those lower economic neighborhoods. So we still need funding for public education. The schools still need funding for the teachers, resources, technology, books, the librarians, all of that. We still need funding. So that's one of the issues that we still need to focus on, is more funding. We did have the more the funding coming in, but it's still needed. It's still needed because we're still facing budget cuts in public schools. They're still facing budget cuts. So that's it. And we need to continue to vote down the voucher bill, even if it calls it back again.
Thank you. Moji? Ms. Jenkins?
So again, I'll concur funding, but I'll differ a little bit in funding, talking about our funding structure, right? So we're on average daily attendance, 10 a.m. We all know that time. I know that time. I wasn't in high school too long ago, and I got yelled at to make sure I was in the building and in my seat by a certain time. But we need to move from that to our enrollment numbers, right? Because that gives the educators in the room and our board members, that gives you a flatter rate to be able to understand your funding year round. Texas is $4,000 behind the national average in per pupil funding, right? That is crazy that we are so far behind. We know that when we invest in our public schools, we invest in our future, right? And I sit here as somebody who was just recently in public schools not too long ago, as hopefully the future state representative for the seat, to tell you that we need to change our funding structure. It makes no sense. If the kids are out of school because there was an outbreak of chickenpox, because some of us ain't had chickenpox yet, now you're taking a hit in your funding, and so now that affects the services that you offer, the programs that you offer. So then we see those cuts in the art program, in the choir. We see that the lab isn't able to get the chemicals that they need. We see that the history teachers maybe don't get the poster boards that they want, or they're having to come out of pocket. So we have to change our funding structure in order to be more successful. And we have to increase the basic allotment and tie it to inflation, or else we're still going to continue to be behind the nation. And that's not right. We're Texas. We're one of the wealthiest states in the world, but yet we don't fund our public education like, I'm watching my mouth, but thank you.
So this takes us back to one of the accomplishments. And I heard you guys say it was funding and funded teachers' pay and increase. I can never agree with that because the teachers are still suffering. The teachers are still living in lack. I'm dealing with situations now where I go to the schools. I spend many, many hours a week in the schools. Teachers have 2 jobs now. Did you know that? Trying to make ends meet. When the teachers are going through that, how much quality education do you think they can give to the student? Because if home is not right, their teacher's not right. So I see it. So those allotments and things like that, I hear what you guys say, but if we want to get down to the nitty gritty of where those allotments should go and where the priority should be, teacher pay, funds going to the schools, getting adequate, incentivizing teachers to stay, paying retention bonuses, paying for performance. I come from 25 years of public and private sector. I live on the balance sheet, pay for performance. When teachers are doing so well in the classroom and getting very challenged children to progress, why don't we bonus them? Why don't we incentivize them? This year, 2024, we're just in the 2nd month. In 2 schools, 4 teachers have left. That's not good. And they've left because of pay. They left education system because of pay. Their desire is to be a school teacher, an educator. So when I think about where the priorities are, teacher funding, resources going to the schools, incentivizing teachers to stay, retention bonuses, and then making sure that student to kid ratio is adequate. 35-1 is not adequate. Not when a teacher had to retain a kid that's going into an asthmatic. That's a problem for me. I don't want another Uvalde. All it takes is one. Think about it.
Okay. You hit on something really important in retaining our teachers. That's huge. I think that's a major problem that we have across the board. Next question. House Bill 1 by Chairman Buckley during the 4th call special session was one of the House's landmark votes on school issues. The bill contains $7.5 billion for school funding, including funds for a $2,000 to $4,000 teacher pay raise. The bill also contained a voucher provision. This voucher provision was stripped by a vote of 84 to 63, and the bill was ultimately withdrawn. What is the path forward for providing public schools and teachers with additional funding? And we will start with Ms. Moji.
Okay, there is an opportunity. We know that the dynamics of the House are shifting, right? But if you'll let me get nerdy just for a quick second, that path isn't too clear because we need a 2/3 pro-public education majority in the House and in the Senate, right? So, and that's not partisan. That's Democrats and Republicans. We need a 2/3 majority to push that through, or else we'll never get it. And the reason why I say a 2/3 majority, because if 2/3 of each chamber passes a pro-public education bill, we don't need the governor's signature. We can have it go into effect immediately. We can bypass that, right? So as long as we have a governor who is accepting millions and millions of dollars from oil billionaires out in West Texas, he is going to continue to attack public education, right? And so it's forms like fees that are important for you to vet out, okay, who's going to be those pro-public education members? And not just who's going to vote right, but who's going to get up on the mic who's gonna say what needs to be said, who's not afraid to take on folks as they continue to come for our public education system. You need the person with the big mouth. And like I said, for the lady who reminded me of my pre-K teacher, that was what always got written on my report card, is that I had a big mouth. And so you need that kind of fighter, but also we have to explain, and over again, I know it gets tiring, year after year, session after session, but we have to explain the joys and the importance of public education. And I know I'm gonna go off topic and she's gonna cut me off real quick, but part of that is also showing up to the Capitol with your schools, with your art programs, with your choirs, because when they sing in the rotunda, you can't stop that. They can hear it all around the building, and then they know that the students are here. We need to go see the students, we need to go see the parents, we need to go see the administrators, and that's how you get pro-public education state representatives and senators. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Advocacy is key. Okay, our next speaker will be Miss Angie Thibodeaux.
Okay, I can't help but to concur. Advocacy is, again, 25 years advocacy, over 100 calls to action. And when you stand before a board or before a committee, one person, yeah, they may hear you. But when you stand in unison with classes and classes of students that these bills impact, we used to say there's a life behind the decision. What we do as a group, we take that life to the decision makers. So you tell me and look me in the eye and tell me you're gonna do this to me. So she's right about that. We do have to stand up and have a call to action. But more importantly, we have to collaborate, communicate, and negotiate. Let me tell you, there's 150 seats, 84 of them are Republican. She's right, 2/3 we need to pass the bill. You're not gonna get that with Democratic alone. That's not going to happen. Let's just be real. The math doesn't fit. It's only 64. So you need somebody who, she says she got a big mouth, but I'm the mouth of the South. I have spent 25 years crossing the line. Forget the party. Come on. This is not about party. This is not about political allies. This is not, we're trying to talk about things. I'm talking about human beings. Think about teachers and the students. That's what it's about. We're getting so caught up in vouchers and charters and where the school is located and where it's not located. Nobody is saying anything about the teacher and the child. Things over human beings. Come on. I live it. I see it. I've spent 25 years crossing the lines. Public and private sector. And I don't stop. You're not gonna outwork me. That's not gonna happen. But you gotta have somebody that can talk across the lines, across the aisles, collaborate, communicate, and negotiate. That's me all day long. I'm proven, experienced, successful. Thibodeaux. Now you know.
That was a lot of questions. Okay, House Bill 1 by Chairman Buckley during the question. Okay, the question part, let me see. What is the path forward for providing public schools and teachers with additional funding?
Advocacy. As the Houston Community College Board Trustee, I've gone to the state legislature to speak with state legislators and federal legislators to advocate for funding for Houston Community College. I'm on the board of the University of Houston Alumni Board Foundation, and I've gone to Austin to advocate for funding for schools and for scholarships. What I can tell you is you do have to know how to present the information to go across the board. You have to be strategic. With the Alumni Board, we were able to champion Senate Bill 5, where we were able to get the tough fund, where we got billions of dollars for research for the University of Houston, and I chaired that committee. You have to be strategic, you have to know how to negotiate, and you have to have the heart for it. You have to know how to do it. You have to have skin in the game. And that's what I've been doing for 25 years. You have to know what you're doing. You have to know about the budgets. You have to know about how to change that funding formula. With the Houston Community College, we changed the way the funding was done. We no longer did it on enrollment. We did it on credentials of value because enrollment was down across community colleges. So what we had to do was base our funding on how many kids we can get graduated, how many kids we can train for jobs where they can learn a skill, but they can make a livable wage. So that's what it is. You have to know what you're advocating. You have to know what the community needs. You have to know how to be able to go and present that across the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Educate, advocate, collaborate. Awesome. Just what we need in Austin. Prior to the last session, Governor Abbott asked the Texas Education Agency to establish a teacher vacancy task force. Texas has almost 400,000 teachers in the state. In the most recent Charles Butt, Texas teacher statewide poll, 75% of the teachers said they were considering leaving the profession, a 20% increase from just 3 years ago. One of the top priorities for the next legislative session should be how our schools attract, retain, and train our Texas teacher workforce. What do you think is the largest obstacle for schools in attracting and retaining our teachers? For example, pay, workplace culture, overemphasis on state tests. What can be done at the state level to fix some of these pressing issues? And we'll start with Moji.
So I'll start that 75% number that y'all heard, that everybody's eyes got real wide. So I'm adopted. My grandmother is a public school educator, has been for almost 50 years. She's part of that 75%. And she told me it's a couple things. It's the salary, right? You know, you do a lot of work, you're not getting paid as much as other professions, you could leave, you go do other things. That's part of it. But the other part of it that we talk about, the human aspect of it, is not being included in some of the district decisions, feeling like the board isn't responsive to you, feeling like the parents aren't engaging with you, feeling like the students don't respect you, right? So those are the things, right? But at the state level, what we could do to help attract and retain our teachers is making sure that as we're writing legislation, going through these reforms, ensuring that, okay, maybe we make sure that districts have to have a process in which teachers can give their feedback to the board, in which the board has to consider it. You know, maybe there's a different governing process that we can go through with the board to make sure that teachers are represented, right? I don't know the answer. That's why you all are here. That's why Raise Your Hand Texas is here, to help give those answers of what is going to be the best pathway forward. But I know it's going to be talking to our teachers about what they need, right? My grandmother, she did her taxes, right? She was going through the amount of money that she spent for her classroom this past school year, right? Well, we're still in the school year, Lord. But she said she spent over $5,000 putting things in her classroom because the district didn't have the budget. So it's about that. It's about making sure that we humanize our teachers and give them the resources that they need to be successful, that we're supporting them. When you don't feel supported in a job, you leave, right? That's why I left Bubba Gumps when I was 17, because I didn't feel supported. And it's the same thing for our teachers. When you don't feel supported, you leave, you won't stick behind.
All right, thank you, Ms. Jenkins. Next is Ms. Angeanette.
Okay. And again, this hits really, really close to me because I'm that parent. I'm that parent that had a child that had some difficulties, and I became involved to help him. If one thing COVID taught me, when we were homeschooling our kids, I was able to witness and see the deficiencies that he had. And I was able to then put a fire under my tail and get involved. When I went to the school, one of the things that I learned from the teachers, and it drove me to go to many schools. I've gone to 27 schools in District 139 last year and 17 this year, and we're only in the second month. And the one thing the teachers told me, they don't feel a part of the process. Every time I talk to an educator, she or he says, well, this is what they said, this is what they want, this is what, where is it that we've come to an agreement? This is what will make our children thrive and be successful. So to incentivize and retain our teachers, I think we need to listen to our teachers, make sure they're part of the process, and then engage them into what's going to happen and what are we going to put in place, and be a part of that process. One of the things is that they don't have enough parent involvement. Parents say that the teachers aren't communicating with them. Well, guess what? We only have 1 or 2 parent-teacher forums in a school year. That's not enough. Remember, here's Mouth of the South right here. Here's advocacy. Here's organizing. So guess what? These teachers need to be made to feel a part of the process, not tell me what to do, but engage me in how to do it. And guess what? Take my feedback as a teacher to tell you what I'm seeing on the front line in the classroom, what really works and what doesn't. Another thing you can do to retain teachers is give them the resources and tools they need to thrive. Lack of resources. They shouldn't always have to go to the parent, although we don't mind. Lack of resources. That's key. Thank you.
Okay, like I said, I've been volunteering in the schools, and I see that the class size can also factor in how well the teacher can perform, or how much quality education she can give. She may need a teacher's aide. That could be a result of budget cut. Pay is a big deal, but a lot of teachers don't do it because of the pay. They do it because of the heart. But they want to be able to make a living. So even with the pay, the insurance is horrible. If most of them have to rely on a spouse insurance, but if it's just them, that's even like an even deeper pay cut. So they would need better insurance as well, and other resources in the classroom that they would need. More participation as well. As the two ladies said, they do need the support from the legislator to be able to understand what their issues are and what would make them want to stay there. A lot of times they do leave to go to another district because that district is paying more. It may be closer to their house, but it's pay, it's the insurance, and it's the resources in the classroom that's helping them stay or make them leave. Those are a lot of initiatives that the teachers deal with. That's when I volunteer, and I'm always like, you don't get paid enough, but I definitely understand that, but the insurance and the pay is a big incentive.
Thank you. Teacher workforce. Prior to the last session, Governor Abbott asked the Texas Education Agency to establish a teacher vacancy task force. Texas has I just said that. Y'all weren't gonna tell me that? Okay, school safety is the next one, I'm sorry. School safety is one of the biggest priorities of our schools. During the 88th regular session, House Bill 2, which requires at least one armed security officer to be present during regular school hours at each district campus, provided a funding provision that increased the existing allotment from $9.72 per student to $10 per student, and provided an additional $15,000 per campus. Now the question is, have you talked with your school districts or campus principals about how this new provision is being implemented? What else needs to be done to help our schools be safe? And we'll start with each.
I don't know if you want to start with me on that one. $9.72 to $10 per head on your child, your daughter, your son. Come on now. But that's neither here nor there. That's not enough. I've gone to the schools. I see the officer. Most of them know me. I've seen the officers in the school. That's not enough. And the officers are there from 8:30 a.m. to 3 o'clock p.m., sometimes 3:30. That's not enough. Here's why. Did you know that there's tutorials that take place until 6 o'clock p.m. in the schools? Did you know that there's extracurricular activities that go on after school hours? But from 8 to 3, that's the protection you give at $10 a head? I find that crazy. Let's connect the dots and get intertwined. Can we talk for a minute, family? Let's talk about the real issue. We will not fix that issue until you fix the laws on gun control. We will not fix that issue until we have guidance counselors, adequately guidance counselors in the school. We will not fix that issue until we talk about the ratio of counselors and teachers' aides and the adequate support that we need in the school. We won't fix that issue until people understand that mental illness is a real illness, and that a child that's facing issues at home come to school and bring those issues to the school and don't have a guidance counselor to talk to. We won't fix those issues until we fix mental illness. Counselors in the school, adequate teacher aides, we need TAs in the school, and then gun control. So $10 is not enough. Again, I don't want another Uvalde. All it takes is one. Are we gonna wait for that? So it's not enough. It's not enough. We need resources into these schools. $18 billion is sitting on the table right now. Let's talk about it. Let's collaborate, negotiate, and communicate. $10 is not enough.
Thank you. Thank you. Next is Ms. Charlene Ward. I'm sorry.
School safety is a big issue, and it is a deep concern for the students. You know, as we grew up, we know the biggest thing we had to worry about was the tornado drill hiding under the desk or in the hallway if a tornado came. Now they have to have lockdowns. So school safety is a concern. They will need the funding to be able to have the officers there. They stay outside. When I talk to some of the teachers and the principal, they stay outside, but they want to make sure the officer is also trained on how to deal with the child who's having a mental issue. They have to be trained to do that because it may not always be something that they've done illegally. They need to be able to handle those mental students, but also they can deal with it because a lot of times a student may do a threat and then either the principal or the teacher may have to deal with it, but they're saying that the officer, they can refer that to the officer because when they have to deal with a troubled student, it takes away from the learning. So that is something that they do want because it is, unfortunately, we've come to the fact that that is a need for the schools, and if that's what it's going to take for and they even think it'll help because there are behavior issues at the school more and more at the public schools, and that's something that's real. Maybe the presence of an officer there, they think would deter some of the behavior, and that's what the feedback that I've gotten. But unfortunately, it is going to be a cost associated to that. So that is something that is going to have to be dealt with through the legislation to create bills on the type of guidance and requirements that goes along with that. You just can't say have an officer there, but there are other requirements and other considerations that need to be made.
Thank you.
So, school safety is personal to me. May 2018, we had the Santa Fe shooting. I was at my high school practicing for graduation, and we were put on lockdown. I lost friends in Santa Fe. I lost 3 friends in Santa Fe. And instead of my school and our local leaders deciding, hey, let's put money into security, you know what they put in our school? Cell phone jammers, so we couldn't call our parents. So when we're talking about public safety, specifically as I've been knocking doors, asking parents about the public safety and about how they feel about it, right? Because it's the parents and the students that we need to be most concerned about. Parents are like, oh, it's okay, I see the officer in the morning, or I see him when I pick up my kids, but I'm really more concerned that this past session, instead of putting money towards guidance counselors, we put in law that, oh, you can put in a chaplain, but not someone certified to handle somebody if they are in a mental health crisis. We already put too much on our police officers. They are having to be guidance counselors and mental health counselors and resources when we have the opportunity to put mental health counselors inside of the schools, right? And keep missing that mark. So that's what we need to go back and talk about, right? But also, I talked about advocacy. Having that real life firsthand knowledge, and I've told the legislators, and I'll admit, I've cried in their offices about it. I lost friends because you all failed me. I sit here, it's obvious I'm the youngest person at this table. I am the very product of the failures of our legislator to protect our students. I don't want to lose any more friends. I don't want my friends to lose their kids. I don't want my nieces and nephews to be scared to go to school.
Assessment and accountability. There has been a lot of discussion about the overemphasis on tests in recent years. Our current A through F accountability system is entirely based on STAR to rate our schools at the elementary and middle school levels. In February, the Travis County District Court will decide whether or not to allow TA to move forward on new college career military readiness rules that will drastically impact the overall ratings of campuses and school districts. Question, should our accountability system be so dependent on the STAR or any standardized test? What factors of school quality would you like to see included when rating our public schools? And we'll start with Angie Thibodeaux.
I would love to see something other than STAR. I'm not downing STAR by no means. Again, I come from corporate and private sector. I live on the scorecard. I live on the balance sheet. But I do believe that a test is one measurement. But when we look at the progression and the progress of the student, and I'm gonna be completely real and open and transparent. My son was a product of that. He did not pass the STAR, but every single 6-week period, he showed progress. So don't hold him back because of one test. Look at his progress, and let me get you intertwined with what the bigger picture is. Again, I keep saying there's a school to prison pipeline. What do you think that would happen and my son is named Major? Guess what? During the school year last year, I met 17 majors. 17 of them in that same category. Went to another school, I met 38 majors. Went to Drew Academy, I met 47 majors. They're making progress. They didn't pass STAR. Do you know what it means when you're making progress and you fail, and they tell you failed? If you hear failure continuously, guess what the people tell me when I go to the prisons to visit them? You keep calling me a failure, so I'm a failure. There is a school to prison pipeline. I refuse to let my son go that route. So you're not gonna fail him because of one test. Look at his progression. There need to be benchmarks and progressive steps that if the child is showing improvement, go ahead on and continue whatever you're doing is working. Let's keep that up. And little bit by little bit, he'll pass that test. Little bit by little bit, me and you teacher, let's partner. Let's work together, we'll get him there. But failing him when he's progressing can't be the answer. And I'm committed to this. I won't stop on this one because I've seen it too many times. And if there's teachers out there, I know you've seen it too. That can't be the only answer.
Thank you. Charlene?
I've never been a fan of the STAR test because I believe that it puts too much pressure on the teachers. The teachers are being jeopardized, or they're being put under too much pressure. Even if the student cannot take a test, students don't test well. They're teaching in the bubble in all year, and they don't test well. And the teacher is being punished because of that. And that's not fair to the teacher. And they're not learning basic learning skills, basic fundamental reading, math, cursive, all of that. I'm not a fan of it, and I don't even know any teachers that are a fan of it. Teachers are not liking the test, so I don't even know why we're still taking the test. So that would be something I would definitely be looking into. But the STAR test doesn't teach you how well that student can learn. It doesn't teach you how well that how well that student can earn. It's just telling you how well they can bubble in and memorize. It's just teaching them, but they're not learning. I think we need to go back to letting our students learn. It's unfair to the teacher, it's unfair to the students. So I'm not a fan of the STAR test. I think we need to go back to just, because it happened a year after I graduated from high school. They inputted that STAR test. And so I saw the difference over the years as the students, because when we get them at Houston Community College, we have to do so much remedial work with them once they get to that level. So it's not working. We have to reimagine how we teach our kids now. We have to reimagine because it's not working.
Thank you, Charlene. Mo?
So no, our system should not be dependent on the STAR test. I took the STAR test, and let me tell you something. That test was the most annoying thing throughout my year, okay? I was in the gifted and talented cohort, and we were quite literally told, if you don't pass the test, your teacher's gonna get fired. If you don't pass the test, you won't be able to go play with your friends. So there's so much pressure on us. I remember going home crying to my mom saying, I'm gonna get my teacher fired, because I was struggling with fractions. I still don't understand, the top, I don't even know the proper word for it, right? But that's the pressure that's on our students to perform so well on one test in one day. We call that a snapshot, right? In my field, when we're doing polling, that's a snapshot. That doesn't give you the full picture. And in schools, y'all don't just teach science, English, math, and history, right? Y'all teach more. You teach art, you teach life skills, you teach emotional intelligence, right? So there has to be, like they said, benchmarks. How are you progressing throughout the year, right? Because there's so many students who start off remedial, not understanding, but then progress further. I was one of those students. I didn't understand the math. And then somehow, by the end of the year, I took the algebra test to be able to take algebra my 8th grade year, and I passed it. But that's not what mattered. The STAR test is what mattered. And me barely passing it is what let everybody know that I could go to the next grade. That's devastating to hear as a kid, that you barely passed, that you're barely on par with your pupils, with your peers. That's horrible. And I'm going off side bit. I do know how to write in cursive. My school taught it, so
That cursive drives me crazy.
Yeah.
The idea that these students cannot sign their
They
names.
can't sign them.
My
They
niece
can't.
graduated from college,
Yeah.
and she did not have a
That
signature.
blows
So
my mind.
that is, and I wasn't a good test taker either. All of my teachers might have gotten fired. I don't know. Thank you, ladies. Thank you so much. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about school funding and the state budget, which is always a hot topic. The legislature has held state funding levels for schools without any increase to the basic allotment since 2019. We've already talked a little bit about that. Double-digit inflation over the past 4 years has placed pressure on schools. This school year, federal stimulus funding runs out and must be obligated if there is any remaining in the school's account. Question, have you talked to your school districts about what they are going to do with their federal stimulus funds? If so, how are they using those funds to address learning loss? What are your schools going to do once the stimulus funds run out? And we'll start with Charlene.
The stimulus funds were being used to put in the gap or to fill the gap for the shortfall. The stimulus funds paid teachers, they paid for supplies. That's what the stimulus fund was used. When it runs out, how they gonna do it? Budget cuts. They lose some very significant people or staff because of the shortage. The librarians, it could be any staff. That's what's gonna happen, budget cuts. And with the school that's already suffering with funding, when they lose that extra stimulus fund, it's gonna be detrimental. So that's what's gonna happen. They answer was short, budget cuts, staff cuts. That's what's gonna happen.
Charlene. Mo?
So, in general, yes, our schools are using them for the learning loss for COVID, right? We were out of school for 2 years, really in learning terms, about 3 to 4 years for some students, right? And so there's a significant gap, especially as we look at some of our kids that were in kindergarten through 2nd grade. There's significant gaps. They don't know how to play well, they don't know how to collaborate, they don't understand basic concepts. So that's what a lot of that money was used, is for extra aids in the classroom to help with that learning loss, right? And so yes, budget cuts. Folks are saying we're gonna have to cut budgets, we're gonna have to cut staff in order to make up for it, right? But not even just staffs. There are some schools that are talking about cutting whole programs. Hey, maybe we only have one choir class once a week, Maybe we don't offer, dance and gymnastics, or at my alma mater, talking about, hey, maybe we don't do the athletic training program anymore. Maybe we don't do the AV program anymore. We're gonna have to cut that. We're gonna need that money to go into other places, right? And so those are programs that are catch-alls for other students that maybe aren't invested in those other things, that keep them invested in public education, right? So that's what our schools are talking about. And they're talking to our legislators. I currently still work in the legislature. They're talking and saying, hey, y'all have to give us something. Dip into that rainy day fund. Pull some money out. Rainy day is already at its capacity. Just pull a little bit of money out. It's a rainy day in public education. We need that money. And so that's something that I hope to work with my colleagues about if elected, because like I talked about, that urban and rural and across racial lines coalition, even the rural representatives are saying, hey, they're talking about cutting the ag and livestock program. That's my bread and butter. That's where I get my interns. That's where I get my ranch hands. And so it's starting to click in people's head like, oh, maybe I should actually do my job and fight for the schools.
Thank you.
So I concur with both of my colleagues here. One of the things we want to make sure we do, and it goes a little bit deeper, I have talked to those schools and I have talked to the principals and some teachers about that. And the rainy day fund, I was going to hit it right out of the park with it because the money is right there. We have it. The wealth is ours. All we got to do is go and possess it. We need to talk about those things and try to go and work with legislation to change, make some changes and access those funds. Here's the main reason why. I'm a parent. I'm in the system, whether I like it or not. But let me just be real. What do you think real parents are going to do when they start cutting art and music and the things that the kids love most about going to school? My son may not be great at math, but he's a hell of a drawer, free-handedly. And the one thing he gets up saying, oh, we got art today, Mom. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. The one thing that he enjoys the most, you're going to cut. You're going to cut music and things like that. And to an average parent, I just want you to think about this for a minute. What do I do? As a parent, here's what we do. We end up moving our children out of public and going somewhere else, and that's not what you want. And little bit by little bit, we dwindle down. And now public is left with nothing, and now we got to go and pay for education. We need to go pay for an education that's better, just to give our children adequate education that they're supposed to be duly theirs anyway. We don't want that. So when parents like me are talking to legislators and say, this is very, very real, you put your knee on my neck. You're chokeholding me. You took everything away from me that made my son like school because of budget cuts. So what am I supposed to do? The education is the one thing we can give our children, and it's still our choice to do it. But when you put your knee on my neck, I have to now make sure he thrives. Little brown boy, he has to thrive.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, ladies. We have another question as it relates to funding in the state budget. The state currently has a budget surplus of at least $18 billion with an additional $23.7 billion in the rainy day fund. What are your funding priorities for public education next session or during any called special sessions? And we'll start with Mo.
So the simple general answer is fully funded public education. But if you'll let me get a little nerdy real quick, I like to get a little technical about it. Mental health and support services, right? We're talking about fully funding art. In that big omnibus bill that we had in that fourth special session, there was an art allotment. That was a hard-fought thing to get in there. And then they pulled the bill because they didn't get their vouchers, right? So talking about an art allotment, talking about a technology, increasing the technology allotment so that every school can be able to give their kids a hotspot if they need it. Because we know that. We know that we are in a digital age. So if our students can't get access to the internet, mom wasn't able to pay the bills, dad wasn't able to pay it, I can't do my schoolwork, I can't do anything, I can't research, I can't do my projects, right? So those are some of the technical, nerdy things. And I want to go back to that mental health and support services, right? Talking about catching our students. So as some of our administrators in the room know, is that if you have a student who was homeless, like I was, right? You are able to declare them as an independent minor so that they can get access to different services like food stamps, be able to get housing, different kind of housing, not necessarily in a shelter, right? I don't know if y'all know that, but that provision ran out. So you can no longer declare that minor as independent. Now they have to jump through all these hoops. So I'm bouncing from shelter to shelter, car to car, couch to couch, this entire time waiting for something to go through, for somebody to just push a button, right? So making sure that our schools are able to provide our kids with those free lunches, even if we don't have the parents' income to go off of. Making sure that we can provide them housing, provide them with clothes, provide them with a place to go shower so that they can be their best when they show up to school. Because we all know, when you're hungry, you're not paying attention. Some of y'all were hungry earlier and y'all were not paying attention. I know I'm a little hungry up here, but we know that when our students don't have the things that they need, they're not their best. So that goes back to our accountability. They can't be their best.
Thank you, Angie.
Okay. One of the things I want to make sure we remember is that, again, there is a large ratio where that student to teacher ratio is beyond where you can get quality education. The resources and the priorities where that $18 billion should go, again, incentivizing our teachers, retaining our teachers, and then bringing in adequate resources. Mental illness, I touched on it earlier, is paramount. We need to bring those. I'm a product of a guidance counselor with a big pencil that used to hit my knuckles when I do wrong. Well, I'm a product of a guidance counselor, a teacher, 2 teachers' aides, and a student to teacher ratio of 15-1. And that was back then. Why can't we do it now? So I am definitely for funding the schools, public schools, funding, getting resources in for adequate accommodations, and I'll tell you why. Adequate accommodations mean that when they're taking tests and there's dyslexia or SPED and those special services and accommodations are needed, have you ever audited the school to realize that they don't even have them? The student is now required to ask for them. How many students are going to raise their hand and say, I need a little bit extra help with that peer pressure around them? Mom, I see it. But those adequate accommodations are needed, and some schools don't have it. They just don't. So getting those proper materials that they need to thrive and be successful is key. And again, $18 billion, public safety. Public safety. That's first and foremost. Teacher pay, incentivizing teachers to stay, reinforcing our teachers when they're performing, giving them a bonus for that. What's wrong with that? And then making sure we have the appropriate accommodations. Those would be the top priorities for that $18 billion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, so in funding, I agree it's funding, but I would disagree with it being a flat funding. It needs to go up as the schools need it, as the socioeconomic needs of the school. They need to be able to make sure every kid have access to the same quality education, no matter what their socioeconomic status is. I would like to bring back or have more of vocational classes. I took a secretary's class, and that was how I worked part-time to help pay for college. So they can learn different skills that they can maybe be their side job. And also the mental health, more guidance counselors, more resources as the teachers may need to deal with the different areas of the need of the student, but they have to know what those are. So it will be able to give the schools that need it. And I know that a while ago it wasn't popular to do that with the Robin Hood Act. That was, a lot of school districts wanted the money to stay with their area, but that's not fair to the kids who really need it. They deserve to have the same quality education anywhere in the city, no matter what school district. So that's what I would have the funding for. Equal quality education.
Thank you, Lindsay. So we are actually, believe it or not, coming up on our last question. But before we get to our last question, I want to recognize the leader of Spring Independent School District, our superintendent, Dr. Lupita Hinojosa.
us for 9 years now, and she's doing a good job here in the district, and we're excited to have her and under her leadership here, definitely moving in a very good direction. Thank you so much, Dr. Hinojosa, and thank you for honoring this partnership and allowing us to have this platform. Thank you. All right, so this is our last question for this evening's forum. This question revolves around local control. During the 85th legislative session in 2019, Texas made great strides to increase funding for pre-K instruction, expanding the amount of money and qualifying enrolled for full-day pre-kindergartners. Yet Texas still does not have a universal pre-K system in place to provide pre-K for all students who apply for public school education. The question: would you support increasing funding and opening up admittance for all students to participate in full-day pre-K? If yes or no, why or why not? And we'll start with Mo.
Simple answer, yes. And I've been very open and honest about this throughout it. I went to a charter school that was founded, owned, and operated by Black women who were and still are public school educators and administrators, right? We had a full day free pre-K program, right? My little cousin went through it. I did not go through it. I got there by second grade. But something that we all understand is that when you have a full day free pre-K program, it prepares our students for kindergarten, right? Prepares them for that full day schedule, prepares them to be around other students all day, and so it sets them up for success, right? And it kind of puts them on a footing to be a grade level ahead, right? And so the reason why I brought up that charter is because when we were graduating, people went from pre-K through 8th grade, folks were graduating with high school credits, right? So they were able to start high school, not as a freshman, but as a sophomore, putting you on that footing to be more competitive, right? And so if we can do that across the board, we understand we are in a global market, we are extremely competitive, globally, internationally. If we can provide that to our students and boost our education system here in Texas, just imagine the horizons that we will go over if we actually invest in our kids. We know that our kids are the future. We know that when we invest in them, we are investing in our future. And so that starts when they're really, really young. That starts by putting cursive back in the school so that they know how to sign their name when they're signing legal documents, but also so that they understand, so that way we can put in other things. Another thing I'll put about that school is when we started them at pre-K, they were also able to start teaching them a second language in kindergarten because they already had a grasp of the colors and the shapes in English, right? So that's another thing that we can boost in our public schools by being able to provide those services to our students.
And we actually have that here in Spring Heights, just a little commercial. All right, Angie?
Absolutely. And the answer is yes to the question. So yes, I definitely would. I was a Head Start kid. I don't know if I'm dating myself, but I actually went to Head Start. And now we have parents that are putting their kids in daycare when they should be going to pre-K, especially in our low to moderate income areas. We do need to provide that. And it is the cornerstone. You cannot imagine what it's like to take kids on day one of kindergarten or first grade. And these are kids coming from different ways, different means of life. They're coming from all, and you're going to populate them into one giant room and say, get along and do this. You're trying to fit a square into a triangle. It's not going to happen. Kindergarten, pre-K, Head Start, whatever you want to call it. Yes, we need that because guess what? It's the fundamental basics that you get your kids into a mindset and they're learning disciplines and routines because we don't know what their home life is like. But those routines are really, really critical. So by the time they get into kindergarten, first grade, second grade, where it really, really counts, they've gotten a head start on the disciplines and the methodology and how I'm supposed to behave and interact with other kids. And because of that, they thrive and get grades ahead and get higher marks and understand that discipline. What I learned with working with kids, especially with kindergartners and first graders, what I've learned is that they don't mind discipline and structure. They actually like structure. They follow the leader. Remember that? They love that. But we have to provide it, and we got to start somewhere. And pre-K is where it starts laying those foundational things. Those are the fundamentals of school. Again, product of Head Start 2 times, and it works. So I implore you, yes, we need to talk about that and incorporate that, especially in our low to moderate income areas. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I agreed to it. My answer is yes. And I too was a product of Head Start. And I truly believe it gave me an extra advantage when it was time to start school, because at that time, they were telling you, oh, you're advancing well, you're advancing well. And as I said earlier, I'm on the daycare and after school programs, and that was something that we implemented. We just not going to have just somewhere to babysit. It's somewhere where they can learn skills. They can, progress and learn different things that help them with their education, especially lower socioeconomic kids. And our daycares were all over the city, so I understood what the different areas, what you have to learn what the different needs are. The after-school programs in 5th Ward, where they really needed somewhere to go, a safe haven, and that's where we were. It was also a place where they can come and learn. They can come and learn the arts. They can learn different skills. So that is something that I strongly believe in pre-K. The earlier they learn, you continue to learn. You learn those habits early. Learn those habits early, and you just continue to build upon that. Continue to build upon that. And that will follow them forever. They'll learn that early on, because the earlier that you learn it, it becomes a habit, and you just build upon it. So yes, that is something. Pre-K, Head Start. I was really sad when they stopped Head Start. I just did not understand why they would stop that. But so then it's something that I wanted to do, and that's why we wanted to do. So why we did the daycare. I think it's very important that our kids learn that. I really do. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlene. Well, give our candidates very knowledgeable. And well, ladies, thank you all for coming this evening. This concludes our candidate forum. And again, we thank you to Raise Your Hand Texas for choosing. Again, thank you all so much for what you do at Raise Your Hand Texas. So at this time, we'll bring up Natalia, who will bring us closing remarks from Raise Your Hand Texas. Thank you.
They get 1 minute. They get 1 minute. They each get 1 minute.
The 1 minute close.
Oh.
We have to close here. It's okay. I went first, and Mo went first and
So each candidate will have up to 1 minute for closing remarks, and we will start with Mo Jenkins.
So again, my name is Mo Jenkins. I'm running to be the next state representative for District 139. Mo Jenkins, Mo Jenkins. Like I said at the beginning of this, public education saved my life. It really, really did. I'm honored to be the staffer that wrote the budget amendment that killed Greg Abbott's voucher scam. I'm honored to work for a pro-public education representative who allowed me the ability to delve deep into public education policy and the way it intertwines with our workforce, with our higher education, and even with our school-to-prison pipeline, as I currently serve as the committee director for House Corrections, where I've toured almost every single one of our facilities here in the state, and I've been able to learn. And I'm even glad for the educational opportunities that we do offer our incarcerated individuals so that they can progress as they come out. I'm super glad to be here and share this opportunity with you. You know, they always say that if you care, you'll show up, right? And so you can tell by the folks who showed up who actually care about public education.
All right. Next, we'll have Angie. Okay.
So I'm Angeanette Thibodeaux, and I am vying to be the next state representative for District 139. You're looking at 25 years of public and private sector. I spent 10 years as vice president at Bank of America, coupled with 5 years as an executive leadership for General Motors, and then wandered into advocacy. Homeownership Preservation Enterprise was my baby, and it still lives today. We will not foreclose, we do not take people's property, and we do make sure that we revitalize neighborhoods. Everything we talked about today ends and begins under the rooftop, in our neighborhoods, at our family tables. And I take pride in spending 25 years of 100 calls to action where we serviced our community nationwide. I have single-handedly brought $100 million into the state of Texas, preserving our home ownerships, preserving our homes and our neighborhoods so that they'll thrive. And I plan on doing the same thing, if not more, in our education system. Thibodeaux for Texas. Thank you.
Thank you. I am Charlene Ward Johnson, and I am running for state representative because I want to continue to bring resources and opportunity into the district. I've been volunteering in schools from elementary, middle school, high school for years, and then it led me into running for Houston Community College Board of Trustees because I wanted kids to have an opportunity to learn a skill or to get their education at a more reasonable cost. I advocate for funding, for job training, educational training, and that's what I do. I also serve on other educational boards, the University of Houston Alumni Board Foundation, where we provide educational opportunities and scholarships. I also am the vice president of Greater Houston Frontiers, where we provide scholarships because I believe a kid should not go into debt just because they want to prepare for a better life for themselves. Education is very important to me because it was always a teacher. Anybody that has a job, it was a teacher that taught them how to do that. So I think education should be a priority for us. Public education needs someone who will stand by it because they've been in there the whole time. Thank you.
All right. So again, thank you all so much for coming today. You want to come on up?
Absolutely.
I'm totally, I'm just better.
You did not know, you are just fine.
I think this is, okay.
This one's yours, but
Okay,
we'll
that's fine.
trade.
Okay.
I wish I was that tall. I
know, right?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you again. No, I left it shorter for you. So thank you again to Ms. Hodges for serving as our moderator. Thank you again to our candidates for taking the time and being so thoughtful in their answers. And I will be remiss if I do not acknowledge Spring ISD for the partnership and Dr. Lupita Hinojosa, the board members for allowing us to have this partnership and being so supportive. The future of Texas is in our public schools, and we thank you for being here this evening. We thank you for informing yourself. We will post this video, as I said, within 3 days. Please feel free to share it with anyone in HD 139 that would like to be informed. Thank you again. Go out and vote. Early voting has already started. We left voter cards on your seats, as well as some more information. Thank you so much, and have a lovely evening.